Darren Zeman was removed. Oops. I'm sure he'll just join again. Alrighty. So I'm just going to wait maybe 1 more minute and then we can get going. I'm sure you guys have seen I posted quite a few things in the classroom section. Is that correct? That's good. You should know me by now. Indeed. All right, so I'm going to present my screen. Do this. All right, I'm presenting, it says. All right, guys, as I just said, it's classwork. So I've posted here for you guys some things. Please tell me that you guys actually watch these videos that I made for you in class. So this week, of course, we're discussing medieval compositions. So I've done both week 7 and week 8, so that you guys can be kept busy, because, you know, the BBC one, yes. Please make sure that you watch, say, this one, The Story of Music, before our session, because Howard Goodall's done a really nice job of giving you the overview, and it's quite an interactive in terms of dynamic. So it's not just like this is music history, because music history can be boring. Not that it should be, but I mean, it can be. But they've done a nice presentation. So I'd highly recommend you guys watch this before our session. So he talks about each era specifically. And then, for example, you'll see I've given you guys an introduction to Roman numerals, if you forgot how that works. So please watch that video. Then I've done a short analysis, short in quotations, on this piece, to get you guys familiar with medieval composition techniques. And then there I've done a thorough compositional technique. And then I've also given you guys, just quickly grab it, an actual analysis, a proper analysis. So I'm just quickly going to get the paper so you guys could see. I'll be making another one for you guys today for the Baroque. There we're going to discuss the piece by Bach. And so, for example, like this one, you see my camera, you'll see that I've done this one for you guys with a thorough analysis. So if I go on my screen, let's say the analysis version, it says the other one, a preview. That's very nice of it. Oh, well, I'm sure you guys will see it. If you've got any questions about those analysis, then you can just ask me if there's something you don't understand. But do make sure you watch the videos first, and then you can go through it in full. Then after that, we can discuss it. Shall we get going? I want to show you guys what we're going to do in terms of the assignments, our portfolio. Firstly, typically what we would do if we're back at college, the compositions, you would have 1 week to do it, and you would have your class, practical class, to do so. So of course now it will work a bit different. So I'll give you guys times and dates so you know what to expect. So I'm going to go to this one. Let's go to our historic series. So here, historic series. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the Western art tradition, and so we're going to investigate all of these styles. So medieval, Renaissance, Baroque, classical, romantic, modern, and postmodern. So every week we will look at one of these. So what you'll get, if I go to classroom, is you'll get an analysis. And then generally speaking, what I try to do is I'll give you guys another video or discussion about something that is related to this. So for example, here I did a Roman analysis, all those Roman numerals, so you guys know what they mean. And say, for example, in week 2, I've done one overview of modulation. So just to freshen you guys up with the different types of modulations that we get. And of course, then you'll get the full analysis. And I've done for you guys on the left, I've done MIDI, and on the right, I've done the score, just to make it a bit easier, a bit more accessible. All right, why are we doing this? It's very simple, because these musical styles are prevalent in various forms of media. So you'll see it's everywhere. So it's very common that you'll hear in different films, in theater productions, in games, where people, for example, a very common one is medieval music, and that will be our first one for this week. Since we won't be at college, this year I've changed a little bit, but what you need to do for every week is you need to create a piece that is stylistically coherent and accurate in terms of compositional techniques. So in other words, you want to make sure that the compositional techniques that you're going to use would actually be used during this period. Do you guys know the movie, what's that one, William Wallace, Braveheart? You guys know that one? Yes. Now, for that film, for example, the costumes is very inaccurate. So they're actually out by 100 years. So they actually use costumes that they would have worn 100 years later. So same for composition. You don't want to write something for one period, and it actually should be in the next period. How long does the composition need to be? You're going to get a video. So I'll show you guys the video in a moment. So every week you're going to get a video. Typically, the video will focus on architecture, just to get you into the feeling, the flavor of that specific era. So it's a bit easier if you can visually see something. So the video would be, it's not a very long video. Okay, so let's continue. You will need to become familiar with the development of the harmonic language. So this is, of course, very important. So that's why I say please watch the BBC one by Howard Goodall, because they explains the basics, but you guys are going to need to do some research for good fun. Of course, you guys need to know a bit about the musical instruments, because the instruments will dictate the texture, and the texture will influence essentially the performance and the composition, of course. And of course, then you will need to program these things so that you can have you can make use of the correct playing techniques. Unfortunately, our library selection for on Contact that we've got, say, at college is very limited for these historical series. Once we get to the Baroque, it's fine. There you've got enough choice. But for the first two, it's a bit limited. All right, of course, what do I want? I want the project files with everything in it. MOV or MP4, whichever, and then of course report. As usual for the project planning, I'll later today or tomorrow give you guys the project planning. So I'll give you guys the Google Doc one. Draft submissions. So this time we can actually have a draft, because previous years I couldn't accept draft submissions simply because there wouldn't be enough time, but this time I will allow for drafts. Of course, we'll quickly go through your compositions and make sure that they seem stylistically coherent. Then, for the fun part, the report. So here you've got to do a detailed report. So I'll give you guys the layout in a moment. Then you need to discuss how melodic and harmonic techniques have developed from epoch to epoch. So epoch is when we say in a specific time frame. And so you'll have to make use of some examples. And yes, you read correctly. You'll need to do a minimum of 2,500 words. Can I see some comments? You can also ask some questions, as I say, with microphone and video on. I don't mind. Easy peasy. Nice, I like that. Maybe use expands, beautiful strings. For now, I am totally fine. You could use whatever sounds you've got available. I'm sure you guys have seen on the WhatsApp group, I've sent you guys about 4 million VSTs by now. So there's no reason why you can't get good sound. So easy one, for example, would be if, say, for example, the Spitfire audio, there's quite a lot of sounds that they've done on those. So you can download those if you've got some internet. Renier has left the meeting. Good. So please make sure, if you've got whatever sounds you've got, so Rowan, you can use expand, that's fine. So I'll be fine with it. As I say, later when we bouncing files on window. Yes, so of course later on when you guys are composing now, later on when we go, say, when the whole lockdown thing's over, we can go to, when we go back to college, then we can exchange out sounds. So even for now, just as a blanket sound, that's fine. So I'm not going to make you guys submit all of these early. I'm going to make you submit the drafts early. So, but later on we'll do all the sound, because otherwise we are going to not get the best end result possible. Okay. So, and then of course we are going to have an exam presentation. So this of course depends on this whole lockdown thing. So every semester, so semester 1 and 2, we have a presentation, and so you can stand in front, and first one is just me, and then the second half of the year we'll have a additional examinator where you'll need to discuss and explain how you've done it. It's very important that you get used to not reciting your work, but you want to show what your thoughts are. And so many times when you work with a director or producer, you want to explain what you've done. So it's a good skill to learn. That's not easy to do. So, but we'll talk about the exam later. Okay, project planning. You're all familiar with this sort of thing. So that's nothing new. And in the report layout, so here it's going to be a little bit different from the previous ones. So we're going to have the usual purpose. Then we're going to have the discussion of melodic and harmonic techniques of each era, and that's going to be from the medieval through the postmodern. So if you take, say, this 7 eras, that's about 500 words per era. Okay, so it's not too bad. And a conclusion, a reference and sources. Please make use of the Harvard referencing method. And then, of course, if you're not sure, please ask me. Any questions? No questions. Okay, can we then move on to the overview of the medieval composition? So you guys are familiar with it. Yeah, so please say, if you haven't watched the BBC one, please do go and watch it. Okay, so now this is our medieval composition. So every week what I've done for you guys is I've made a short little overview. So for example, like, when did it start? Many times you'll see I've given you guys several links. So for you to do a bit more research, I've given you guys like notable composers. I've also given you guys in Classroom, you'll see I've given you a listening list. So there you've got to go and listen to this type of music. In my lovely video about the introduction of historical series, I mentioned that you guys should really familiarize yourself with this type of music. So you want to go and listen to this music as much as you can, to sort of drench your ear in it. And essentially what we're going to do is you're going to, it's almost like copying by osmosis. So in other words, you'll pick it up quickly. So first you might find it's very odd. And then as you listen to it more, just relax your ear, open your mind. You'll find like, well, all of a sudden you start to grab things. Now, of course, it's very useful if you know about say, the melodic and harmonic techniques they've used. So you'll see what I've done for you guys here. So common musical devices, like here, for example, like you'll see in the analysis of Stella, the Dunstable piece, you'll see here, for example, they don't change key. For example, that's something that they're not going to do, except for a modal change where you can say, for example, go from major to minor, minor to major. So that is something that they will do. But for example, they're not going to go from D to G. That's just not going to happen. Then you'll see the other one is this, the long arching melody. So this is where we make use of the melisma. And you'll see in this example here, if I go to the this one, introduction, you'll see in this video here I've shown you guys this one. So like if you look at this specific composition, that's me. And so here, for example, you'll see a very common melodic phrase. So when you compose, you want to do something similar. Please don't copy it note by note, then it won't go very far. And so you see there, you could hear Stella, and you could see the notes has been stretched out. So this is what is known as a melisma. Any questions? Seems straightforward for now. Yeah, okay. So the truth is, when you start, say, the medieval composition is one of the easier ones because harmonically it's not quite as developed. By the time we get to the Baroque and say the Romantic, it's going to be pretty heavy because by that time the harmonic language, for you to make it seem like it's been composed in that style, you really need to you'll need to get to grips with it. So this is a bit simpler to do. So here's an example of the melisma. Yeah, so it's very, very common. And you can see here we'll have one voice. In BBC, Howard Goodall's video series, he explains why they do it this way. So I'm not going to go too much in detail. So you guys, but please watch that. Do you see very commonly in this time, the voice is the most important instrument. So you will find that it is possible to find instrumental music. It's not that it didn't exist. It actually does exist quite a lot, but we don't have a lot of writing about it. So there's not much clarity exactly about what happened. So lots of the music that survived is in written form, and usually they were written for voice, or they were even just a text with a little bit of scribbles on top of it, which is known as neumes. And so in that case, there's a little bit of a melody left. And so this is why that's the only amount of information that we know. So it's common to write things in unison. So in other words, this first example is not like that. This one here, the other one is not like that because the videos I selected for you guys, or the pieces to analyze, is later medieval work. So early, what you'll hear is that you'll find many voices sing these same notes. So all of the voices will be in unison. So if you want to choose something like a choir sound or something like that, that's totally fine. As I say, with the feedback, then we can go through the instruments and the sounds that you've got available. Do you guys know what organum is? Nope. Okay. So organum, if we had, for example, this melodic idea, what you would do is you take, now there's two types. It's called parallel organum. So think of a rail track. This is the one that Howard Goodall uses. So if you take your melodic line, and what you're going to do is you're going to have, say, in a perfect fifth, everything moves up or down. Okay, or perfect fourth. So those are your two main types. You get a third type, which I'll explain in a moment. So whatever you write, say for example, here we had D, E, and G, then for example, there would be an A, there would be a B, and then there would be another D. So you take that and you move it up and down. This is the quintessential technique that we call Gregorian chant. It's not the official title, but it's in the common sphere that's known as Gregorian chant. So this is what is meant by organum. It's not oreganum. Oreganum you put on your food. Okay, so it's organum. Now the other one, as you'll see in Goodall's one, is this one called drone organum. And so drone organum, what that is you're going to have, let's say for example, we have a D note, and this D note is going to go all the way through, and then you'll have a melody going over this. So the drone will just stay straight forward, and then the melodic line will go above this. Any questions? Yeah, it's like a bass note, but it's typically not a very low note. So this is one very important thing that is still needs to be developed. Remember, we're now going back 1,000 years and more, even up to 1,500 years. The bass register, now this is actually very interesting. All over the world, you'll see that very few indigenous tribes or groups of people, very few in the ancient times made use of low notes. So actually, in the West, one of the first instruments, like say the viola da gamba, which we'll talk about as we go, is one of the first instruments to start to use the lower range. So so this note is going to be pretty high. As I said in the BBC one with Howard Goodall, he shows the exact example there. So you guys can go and listen. So it's a relatively high note. So in this case, if you look at this one here, this would be pretty much in this range here. So it's a close, like a close voice. Okay, now we get two types of compositional style. This is also very important. So firstly, you get what is known as sacred music. So this is music that will be sung in a church or cathedral. So these will typically have Latin text. They'll have these long melismas. So both of the analysis I've done for you guys would be sacred music. As I say, the reason for it is that lots of secular music, there's no score for it, and so we don't. Lots of that type of music was lost. Sometimes you'd find that only the words has remained, so no one really knows how it sounds, or people make their own up. If you do, however, listen to some, we're going to listen to some music in a moment. For example, if secular music, you'll have short phrases, so it's usually 2 bars, 4 bars, and this type of music is commonly used for dancing, also known these days as partying. Um, so you'll see short little sections. It's very common that you'll find that the vocal is doubled by the instrument. So whatever you hear is going to be doubled exactly by another instrument. It's very common. And you'll see, for example, if there is percussion, which they are for the secular ones, that you'll find they've usually got very simple rhythms with short little phrases. They also make use of the melisma. And then you'll see it's common that they'll make use of little ornamentations and vibrato. During this period, as well as the Renaissance, you'll see the vibrato was actually used as an ornamentation. So it's not today, it's just part of a normal performance. But in those days, it was an additional compositional thing. Okay, so let's quickly look at the instruments. We're going to listen to one or two in a moment. So you'll see it's very common that we get solo voice, 2 voices, and you could find them in ensembles as well. You'll get boys who sing, so because they were in cathedrals and monasteries. So you'll see it's very common for boys. And then what you will find only later on, you'll typically find that you get male choirs and female choirs. They don't always mix. It's only a later period that you'll start to see them mix. And the reason for this is very simple, is because these people lived separately, so they didn't have contact with each other. So men were separate from the women. And so for this reason, you'll see that there is some compositions, especially Notre Dame school, we'll start to see mixed voices, but it's only later on you'll start to see this as a common thing. You'll guys see I've given you some instruments, so we're going to look at the portative organ in a moment and some recorders. You will find some other instruments, of course, and I've got this book, for example. I just want to show you guys. So these ones I've given you are the common ones. So here I've given you guys this. Let me just unpresent myself. Let's see. So here, for example, I've got this book, and so in this book, they chronicle hundreds of different instruments through the different eras. So I'll give you guys some more information on instruments. Let's quickly see the question there. Okay, so the difference, so male and female, of course, think about it this way. So typically male will be in a lower register because men, it's not as easy for them to control. So typically, if you compose for male and not for mixed, you'll typically have a lower register. If then, for example, female, you'll typically have higher, so you'll have soprano and alto. And you can see with time, these were fit together, so you get a full texture. But this took hundreds of years to develop. Now, Byzantinian ensemble, what happened with this one is the Byzantinians, so that would be like from Turkey down all the way to Ethiopia. They had a very big school for singing. And a singer in those days, it took 15 years for training for you to become a professional singer in those days. And you guys can see in this one, let me just share my screen again with you. So now, yes, you will need to choose either sacred or secular. So you cannot mix them. This is very important. Yeah, so you just do one. So if you want to do something more dancey, which I'll play in a moment, then you can do that. Or if you want to do something more secular, sacred, then you could do that as well. So, but please do not mix them, because then this would not have been possible. And I'll explain in a moment why. Okay, now what is nice about the way I've set it up for you is that if you want to find out, you can now, just because I have a link on there, and you can just click, and then you can go and listen to it automatically. So I've made this, and you can see it's got a Middle Eastern influence. So this would be a Byzantinian chant. It's important to understand that during this period of time, the Middle East was actually the world leader. So during this time, you'd see it's this one. Whoops, there we're going into the cool effect. Um, so during this time, lots of people copied the Middle East because they were the forerunners of science and technology. So lots of people in the West actually copy people from the Middle East. So the Byzantine school was quite a bit of a leader in those times. Of course, it's called the medieval, called the Dark Ages for a reason, because there wasn't much development during this time. So things developed only in the later part, just before the Renaissance. You'll start to see things pick up quickly. But before that, you'll see it's hundreds of years where things were very, very similar for a long time. Shall we listen to some of these instruments? So here, for example, like, can we listen to the portative organ? And I'll play you guys some of the wooden recorder. Okay, let's not do that. All right, so here I've got some medieval instruments for you guys. And then I'll put these ones additionally for you guys on Classroom as well. So here, let's see quickly. I want to show you guys this one. I'm going to go through all of them. So here, for example, we've got some.
Yeah, well, first of all, this is the simplest thing. This is a recorder. And this is, if you think of recorder when you're in school, it's about the same size, but it has more turns and like nicely turned furniture leg. That's actually because that's a Baroque style of instrument. This is a copy of instrument around 1600 or 1620. So it's a little bit different. And this is they used to just call this the flute or the flauto dolce. The recorder comes from the word remember, recordare, because that's what birds did to their mother's song. They remembered him. This was probably the simplest of the simplest and was associated with shepherds and things, but people also played variations on this. So for instance, I might play a tune like, I might go like this.
So you see, in this case, he's also mentioning shepherds, so you'll find that musical instruments is used in a wide context.
Go. I messed up, but you get the idea.
Okay. You guys have any questions? Let me quickly just unpin this one. Yeah. Okay. So they do have a double, they do have harmony, but it's a very basic harmony. So as I said, with the organum, that would be the start of harmony. So you'll find perfect fourth, the drone, and perfect fourth and fifth. So you'll find very, very basic harmony. Recorders are usually in the secular style. Yes, so you'd find that more common. So typically in the church setting, you would almost always find voice. In SpongeBob, yeah, you'd find this sort of music you'll find actually in, that would be a recorder, correct? Yes. This you can see is a wooden recorder. They didn't have plastic in those days because plastic is a material made from, well, partly or mostly from petroleum. So they didn't have that. Okay, let's look at our next one then. So here, let's see, I've got you guys this nice video here. And so we've got quite a few different instruments. lute. So string instruments you will find common in royal settings. And you can hear this sound is very similar to a modern classical guitar. Of course, it sounds a bit different because the body is different, but it's similar towards that. So this is a lute. Let's quickly go. This is a hurdy-gurdy. So this instrument will create drones. And you can see this is a keyboard-like feature here. And so here he's bellowing it forward, so this is creating friction. And so typically that's going to create a drone. And you can play a melody over it. So this is an instrument that we use as a type of drone. And you can hear the range is very small. So it doesn't have a low sound. So this is very important. Do not have low sounds, please. Low notes. All right, so here's another string instrument. And you can see the body is very small. Okay, so then we've got, say, for example, this one, the oud. And the oud is the forerunner of the modern guitar. You'll always see that pair of big picks. And then usually for oud, they don't have frets. This instrument is typically used by the Greeks. And then this one's called the psaltery. It's got a very nasty sound, typically. As you can hear, this instrument won't have a big dynamic range. Can't go super low. But it's got a this could be very useful in, say, for example, a modern setting where you can create something like a pad or drone. To see if there's anything else. Yep, that's those. Any questions on these? So cannons, you will start to see rounds. What you mean cannons, Bernard, do you mean cannons, or do you mean like rounds? Cannons for bass. No, cannons for bass. No, that's only going to come around by the time we get to Romantic period. Then you'll see someone like Tchaikovsky using those cannons. So no cannons. Cannons only for warfare. Okay, let's listen to maybe one or two more. Let's quickly see this one. So here, for example, we've got two interesting instruments, the clavecembal on the right, and then this is called the portative organ. So this is the forerunner of the massive church organ that we'll see by the time we get to Bach. And this one, you push it with your arm to push the air through. Now, it's not always true that the music will not be plain. So you'll get sometimes where the music will be more virtuosic, will be flurrying. As you can see, this is a very crude instrument. It's got a very small box, so the resonance is especially very low in resonance, and you can hear the notes sort of blurring over each other. So this is you could see the forerunner to an instrument like the harpsichord, and we will be discussing the development of the piano as well in the coming weeks. Okay, so you can see pushing it with his arms. So you would find keyboard-like instruments and organs like these. Later on in the Renaissance, they were very popular, these two types of instruments, but you would start to find them creep out. They are very basic instruments like these. And you can hear their sound is rather high-pitched. Okay. Any questions on those? Could we use these for cartoons? Yeah, absolutely. Can you mix instruments from different countries? This would be a very not recommended idea, Akil, because what's going to happen is, remember, in this period of time, the amount of information that traveled around would be very rare. So, for example, one region will have one types of instruments. So, for example, in Greece, they'll have a certain type. And then, for example, then in France, they'll have another type. So you wouldn't want to mix them because this would be unrealistic. So during that period, this won't happen. You could imagine a trap with these instruments. Yeah, look, guys, what's going to happen with this type of composition is that you're going to learn a lot in terms of like, oh, this is where that sound comes and this is where that sound comes from. Now, in the future, it does not mean you cannot use this in modern production, because of course you can. And this would actually be to advantage, because now lots of time people ask, like, how could they come up with something interesting or new textures? Like, well, it's very simple. Just go back to the past, see how they've done it there, and then you take those ideas and you reinterpret them. So yes, absolutely, you can. Could you use these for cartoons? Yes. The Vuela, something similar to it. Oh, you could say for that one, you could see it's going towards the guitar. So something more towards the guitar and like the mandolin, those types of instruments. Some of these instruments disappeared for hundreds of years. It's only that people find drawings, or they might find one somewhere in someone's house. So lots of these instruments, they have been not always in common usage. So some of them would be like the oud has been played for thousands of years. Okay, shall we then watch our medieval composition, the video for that one? Let's see quickly what this one is. So I just need to remember. Oh, here, for example, we've got more fluty music by, I've also analyzed this composer, the Mahat. So here he, for example, made use of recorders and very, yeah. You can hear Mahat is a later medieval composer, and he's starting to use triads. So you can start to think of triads, but don't go too wild on those triads. So this is very late medieval, almost starting Renaissance. Do you hear what I mean in terms of there's no low notes? So the register is pretty high. Okay, so I'm just going to forward a little bit. Do you hear the little runs up and down, use of passing notes? That's very, very common. So you guys will see in the analysis I've done for you, I do explain all of this quite nicely. All right, shall we then have a look at our video that you're going to compose to? It's already on Google Classroom. So it's going to look like this. It's a 1 minute and 15 seconds. And so you will need to come up with music that will fit to this cathedral in Bourges. Alrighty. And you can clearly see here we've got quite a few graphic elements because this is a medieval cathedral. Right, there's some questions. Let's quickly see. How important are hit points? It won't be that important. So you want to use this as a basis. So you don't have to go and hit everything. We're not going to take this as a like an action sequence. So you want to get the tempo and the range feeling similar in terms of tempo to the cut, but you don't have to go and hit every change. So it's very common for these, let's say like National Geographic or Discovery or Food Channel, whatever. You see, Darren's even left the meeting. He's like, no, he's not doing it. No, I'm just kidding. So you don't have to worry too much about hit points per se. Focus on the composition and make sure the composition works. But then, of course, you want to fit it to. Hello back. Hello, Darren. Welcome back. I just thought maybe key change was not a big in this era. Okay, so as I said earlier, you do not change key except if you do what is known as a modal change. So that's why I say please make sure that you guys do watch these videos because I have explained all of this already that you should have watched in advance. Yeah, sacred music probably be more fitting. Unless you think it's a very party-like feature. So something like that would be right. So key change Salwazi, what you'll do is you can go from major to minor or from minor to major. That's fine. And of course, in this period of time, we're going to make use of modes. So for example, like the D Dorian or Phrygian or any of those types of modes are very common because in medieval periods, they were quite fixated on Greek ideas. So you can choose something like the Aeolian or the Dorian or something like that will give you instantly that type of medieval sound. Any other questions about this, about medieval period? Are you guys going to be all right with the medieval period? Because so you need to watch this video so that you know exactly what's going on, so that you guys can ask me questions as well about them. Any other questions? Okay, no, none for now. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to give you guys then your first. So what's going to happen with our historic series? We're going to have 7 compositions. These 7 compositions together will form one portfolio piece. So the thing is, we will dive in, swim or drown, pretty much. So the thing is, you will learn by doing. So that's very important. So all of these 7, because you guys are not familiar with the style, so all of these 7 will eventually become one mark. Yes, what you do you shall I quickly show you guys what you can choose in contact? Okay, so let me quickly just open up contact. Okay, I'll open up contact. So what you could do for this
Because I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's no audio.
Okay, can you guys? Okay, you should be able to hear me now. Is this true? Thank you. Okay, so sorry, I didn't see that contact's going to steal the engine. I'll open next time in. Sorry about that. I'll open next time in Pro Tools ahead of time. So what you could do is in the world section, you got to go and find things there. As I say, be very careful with things for the Middle East and Far East. You could take some strings as well, EQ out some bottom, change some tuning, but don't choose the violin per se, because the violin didn't exist for about another 400 years. So only around the 15th, 16th century, you'll start to see that becoming more common. Can we then quickly move on? I want to show you guys your second portfolio submission for this term. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Okay, good. All right, so for our next one, what we're going to do is we're going to do a corporate video. These are, you need to compose suitable music for the 4 videos that I'm going to give you guys, and this has to match the aesthetics, pacing, and overall brand awareness. So we're going to go through them in a moment. You need to do research about this company, thorough research. So what the company's about, the target market, the product or service, approach, and then what it's about. So this video is about a famed BBC British broadcaster, also known as the BBC, and then this is going to be an indent, so it's those videos that you see in between programs. So of course you need to go and make sure that it fits each video, and you need to connect all of these together so it feels like one brand. So say we'll watch them in a moment. Project planning guide I will give you guys. If you want to, you could make use of a type of voiceover if you wanted to put that as part of your thing, but that's up to you. You can include sound effects as well. So if you want to make use of some voice and some sound effect, you're welcome to, if you feel it's necessary. Of course, I want everything. For this specific project, if you want to put all the videos in one project, that's fine. Then you could, for example, work on all of them to have some coherency. So as from a design perspective, it may make more sense to put all of them together. If you want to do them separate, that's fine as well. They're only about 40 seconds each. And of course, you're going to have a report. So all of those you know as well. We're going to do a feedback session, report, 1,500 words, please, max 3,000. And of course, you'll need to discuss how you made use of the music in terms of the company's identity and how you made it work. And of course, you'll present this at your exam as well. Those are all the usual things. And then, for example, in the report, you need to make use of the background of the company, corporate identity, products and services, target market, and aim of the advert, because this is a type of advert, essentially. I will give you guys the report layout again. Can I show you guys then the indents? So let's see if I can throw that one out. So if you go to your classroom, they have no sound, of course. You'll see that at the very bottom. There's your indents. So let's quickly watch the 4 of them. So you have to make music for all 4. And let it play. It's going to look like this. So now the type of music you choose is up to you. So if you want to have something moving, you can see this is sound design like, but you want to have it in a musical context. The pacing is going to be tricky. Not like this. There is some hit points. Okay, and you can see it sort of cycles. So you can see BBC 2, and you can see the number 2 is sort of in the middle. So you can think about how you can make use of 2 in that one. So this is the first one. Second one here. So each of them have a completely different color, different texture, different technique. So, and of course you would want to have something matching. So this could be like the key, anything in that regard. And you can see there is a sense of movement, and so that movement, you've got to use this as your starting point. You can see it's very cyclical, so your music doesn't have to be too progressive in terms of chord progression or whatever. That's up to you. Okay, that's the second one. Any questions so far? How many instruments would typically use in a piece? So regarding it would be small ensembles. So for the first one is a small ensembles. What genre era for BBC videos? That's for current time, eh? So that's your second portfolio one. So that you can use any sound synthesizers, whatever. Cool. Okay, let's watch the third one. So you've got to come up with for all of them, and they've got to be cohesive as a whole. And so you here can see it's a completely different texture than the previous ones. So of course your sound palette will need to be different from the previous one. And as you can see, very cyclical. There's the number 2 again. Okay, so they're all about 41 seconds long. And then let me show you guys the last one. Last one looks like this, and then I'll take some questions. You can see this one's got a sort of underwater look to it. As I say, you may add some sound effects. If you want to use your voice as part of it, you can do that as well. So if you want to use words, or if you want to sing, anything like that is fine. Okay, so that's how it looks. All right, any questions, guys? Answer 4. Okay, so of course these, what I'm going to suggest is that we do, for example, maybe two of these as our first draft, and we can have 2 of them as our second draft. So you've got to come up with sounds. I know your sounds might be limited, but come up with notes, come up with ideas, and then later in the term, depending on how things go, then we can improve the sound selection. Yeah, so that for this period of time, whatever sounds you've got available, that's totally fine. You guys have got a lot to do, so you've got to please make sure you watch all the videos I've made for you, because this will give you the nitty-gritty. So today I just wanted to give you guys sort of an overview, and then each week we'll go through some specifics, but I've really gone into quite a bit more detail regarding harmony, melody. So that's why I say please watch this before we start. Okay, you guys will get the draft dates in calendar, so you'll know what to do as soon as we do. Can I just see, does everyone have a DAW of some sorts? Who does not? Everyone, yes, yes, yes. Okay, so you all can, no question, yes, 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 good. Okay, so everyone can work. Demo version, that's fine. You know, not anymore. Shame, Martin. Does FL count? Yes, you can use FL, it's totally fine. It is a DAW, isn't it? So yes, Turbo FL is fine. You can even submit to me in FL, I do have it. Yeah, we're all crying for Martin. Mac popped. Studio One is fine as well. You can just submit the bounce. Does the Studio One have a video engine? Should have. Yes, it does. Yeah, you can use that. Then just export it. But what about the video bounce? Well, there you'll have to. That's why I say we'll do it for now as a draft. So later on we can then work around it. So video bounce, that might be a bit of a limit there for you. But why don't you get yourself the Pro Tools license, Sabo, when the college put them out? What's happening with all the, yeah, we'll just submit those when we go back. So if you want to, you can already send them to me. If you've like those ones just at the end of term, you could just Google Drive them to me. Otherwise, we will do a formal submission by when we return. So please make sure you keep everything. Yeah, so as I say, if you want to send them to me, you can do so already. Otherwise, I'll just give you guys a date when we do return, and you can just submit them on that day. Ah, that's a pity. That's strange. Why? Is there a specific reason why it's not working? RAM. Ah, yeah. The sounds are limited. As I said, Tabo, I've given you guys like a huge list. Yesterday, I just sent out yesterday for you guys another link where you guys can get quite a few contact. We don't have to focus on them too much. Yeah, so you're gonna basically all the things that we've done last term, just leave them as they are, and then I'll give you guys a date in the future. I'll give you like 2 or 3 weeks when we return, and you can just submit those when we go back. And then for now, I just want you guys to get started on the new work. It's not the most ideal, but we've got to make sure that because there's a lot of work that I want you guys to get done, because this is part of your composer training, so that when you go out there, then you know, like, oh, I've done a medieval, I've done a baroque, and you can just you learn how to compose in musical styles you're not maybe familiar with, or that you've never composed in. So I do want us just to focus for now on the new things, and of course whatever work you can get done, get it done, please. All right, guys, so yeah, they're going to be lots of fun. Please remember, every week will be different. So one week you might find that, let's say, the classical period is easy for you, and then maybe the romantic period is difficult for you. You find the baroque difficult, and maybe the postmodern one's easy. So some weeks will be difficult, and some weeks will be easy, depending on how we go. I'll be starting way back over 1,000 years ago. All right, guys, I'm glad everyone could join. Any questions, final questions before we wrap up? Please remember, you guys can also send me messages through this classroom stream, or you could just Hangouts me. So if you go here to the Hangout section or chat and meet, you guys can gladly do that. You can just chat and meet me. And of course, we do have our MMC group as well. So if you think there's a question that you want to ask that's relevant to everyone, you can just put it on there as well. Typically, they would be due each week. So in the past, we did each of them separately. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you guys a specific date. So for example, I'll give you guys 2 weeks, and you can submit a draft, and then we'll have to submit all of them when we return. But in the past, what I did is every week you have 1 week to compose a piece. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. That was a bit weird because I can't hear you and I can't see you. But I hope that was at least was interesting, and you guys know that you're back up to speed. It's a pleasure, Marius. It's a pleasure. Yes, please do watch those videos. I've really tried to analyze them. You have the PDFs of everything, and if you're not sure, please just contact me. I'll gladly help you guys with anything I can. Well, thank you so much, guys. Have a good day. See you guys then tomorrow for APP, eh? Thank you, Martin. I hope you glad you enjoyed it. Cheers, guys.